there was a time we were brought here, sir, from Kuje prison here, because we're fighting for the validation of June 12. The fellow who engaged in the criminal annulment of the election left us in detention and went home to Mina. Then somebody pretended to be the head of state and brought us here and said he was freeing us, but please can you cooperate with us? We said, what kind of cooperation? You better go back to Abeokuta and allow June 12 to be. Mr. President, we thank you very tremendously for recognizing June 12. Some people are saying you should declare the result. You have declared the results. We now know the winner of that election officially, who is now being honored with the order of GCFR, reserved for heads of government in Nigeria. Sir, before this regime, we have had 7 governments, 7, that pretended that June 12 did not exist. In the words of Abiola, they were clapping with one hand. Today, we are clapping with 2 hands. Thank you, Mr. President. But let me leave you with what Abiola would have wanted today. With his farewell to poverty, Mr. President, we want you to engage Nigerians to wage a meaningful fight against poverty in this country. We have enormous resources to make every Nigerian happy. Sir, by virtue of Section 16 of the Nigeria Constitution, ensure that the collective wealth, the Commonwealth of Nigeria, remains in the hands of our people and not in the hands of a few people. For Gani Fawehinmi, sir, apart from his contribution to the June 12 struggle, you are also honoring Gani for his defense of human rights, the rights of the Nigerian people. Sir, with effect from today, I urge you, Mr. President, to direct all security forces in Nigeria and the police in the spirit of June 12 to respect the fundamental rights of every Nigerian in this country. Finally, sir, finally, Mr. President, the human rights community will work assiduously with the Buhari administration to put an end to the reckless killings of our people. Thank you, sir.
We thank Mr. Femi Falana for those remarks. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to now invite Professor Wole Soyinka to please come over to the podium. He's already here.
Negotiate. Okay. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, governors, colleagues, this is a bittersweet day. I should perhaps begin by saying that I am delighted to be able to be here to participate in this ceremony. I was virtually yanked off the plane, literally yanked off the plane on my way to Brazil to be present here. And I'm sure the conspirators succeeded, because if I had heard about what happened here and what I've listened to, I really would have knocked myself on the head. Most of what I wanted to say has actually been knocked off my throat by one singular gesture, the presidential apology. It's a dimension which I did not expect from today's ceremonies, and I had a lot to say. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, because we're limited for time, the words have been taken out of my mouth. However, I would like to make a request, Mr. President, since we're honoring heroes of democracy today. I'd like to make a request that you manage to stop creating confusion in the minds of Nigerians. It is not possible to honor MKO Abiola in one breath and then admire his tormentor in another breath. Loyalty is all very well, but loyalty can become perverse if that loyalty is retained to an individual who, if he were alive today, would be before the International Court of Crimes Against Humanity. One who broke the laws of Nigeria, who broke international law, pauperized this nation, committed crimes against humanity. It is confusing if loyalty, professional loyalty, is carried so far as to be accorded such an individual. We had a private conversation, thank you so much for that privilege, some time ago. And remember, one of the things which I mentioned to you was this. I said, you're fighting corruption. How come it that a notorious corrupt ruler is honored by one of the most important avenues in the capital, Abuja, whereas individuals like the martyrs of the struggle, the philanthropists of the nation have not been honored? The answer which you gave to me was not too satisfactory, but I let it pass. Today, perhaps, is also a day to inaugurate our Hall of Shame, so that as we have a Hall of Heroes on one hand, we also have a Hall of Shame as a lesson to future generations. But the apology has been most touching. On behalf of the Nigerian people, accept it. Accept, and I'm sure that most Nigerians will agree with me. It's a beginning. I do not agree that this is closure to the events of June 12th. There are far too many traumatized individuals walking around the streets, pauperized individuals as a result of the policies and the attitude of one of the most brutal dictators that this nation, if not the most brutal, in fact, the most brutal dictator that this nation has ever known. Closure will come by responding to those traumatized individuals, the victims of unspeakable tortures, some of whom were compelled even to watch their beloved ones being tortured on behalf of a man who was determined not just to demonize, to dominate his environment, but to dehumanize that environment. All that is left to me, because much has been said today, which has covered much of the grounds I wanted to cover. All that is left to me is to plead that we do not forget the nameless, the unsung heroes and heroines of that struggle. A number of names have already been listed. I would like to include, by the way, one of the pioneers, the instigators of the physical confrontation with that dictator, Comrade Ola Oni, who mobilized a number of young people and fought the goons and the slaves, the surrogates of that dictator, to a standstill in that propitiously named stadium in Ibadan, Liberty Stadium. But above all, I want us always to remember that individual whom we are principally celebrating today, the man who said, who reappeared and represented himself as a man who did not understand the word surrender, saying, "My name is Moshood Kashimawo Abiola. I'm back to reclaim my mandate." Thank you very much.
We thank Professor Wole Soyinka for his remarks. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite Sir Fidelis Nanmiap Tabgon, representing the former SDP governors within the northern states, to please come forward and make a short remarks.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, the Vice President, I want to maintain all the other protocols. I want, on behalf of my colleagues, two of us are going to speak, but I'm speaking on behalf of those of us from the northern part of the country, to thank the President. This unexpected gesture came from an unexpected quarters. Definitely, and I think to bring this matter to an end, something that has been lingering in the last 25 years with the stroke of a pen, I want to thank you, sir. And I want to congratulate you on this historic event today. Those of us that were on the ground knew exactly what we went through, because Nigerians came out in their numbers, irrespective of religion, irrespective of tribe. The president and his vice were all Muslims, and Nigerians came out en masse to vote for them. This was what we expected Nigerians to take off from then on, but it was annulled, and we found ourselves where we are today. But thank God, this is being rectified, and I think we will take off from there to make sure that Nigerians are Nigerians, irrespective of where you come from, irrespective of what religion you belong to, so that this country can move. Mr. President, sir, I want to thank you again, and to pray that God continues to give you the courage to continue to do what you are doing, because this chapter you have brought to a close today is what will linger on for the rest of our lives. Once more, I want to thank you, Mr. President, the Vice President, and everybody that is part of this decision. Again, I want to congratulate the recipients. We knew what we went through, sir. We knew what we went through, but thank God it has come to an end today. Thank you very much, sir.
Your Excellencies, a nation of greatness, a moment of greatness. May I now invite Chief Olusegun Oshoba.
Mr. President, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, I join all of us in expressing gratitude to Almighty God for making us witness this historic occasion. As the sitting governor of Ogun State, the home state of the late Basharun MKO Abiola in 1993, I was in the forefront and an active participant in the politics of the era. I shared the fears, the pains, and anxieties of fellow Nigerians about those developments. Since that annulment, our efforts are building an enduring democracy have not always been smooth. Many have sought to falsely consign the promise of the June 12 election to irrelevance. We have lived in denial for so long. The decision by Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, to halt the deceit and to repair the damage by taking this symbolic step of recognizing the promise of June 12, the sacrifice of Bashorun, MKO, Abiola, and many other heroes of democracy nationally and internationally, the artisans